Ah, okay. Ich schick mal ein Foto an Anja. Finally. Let's uproot it.
Very warm welcome to this year's Xathon 2022. My name is Delia and I'm lead events at Henkel DX Ventures. The people in the room might wonder why I am introducing myself again, but we are streaming this session now live to LinkedIn and also to YouTube, so that's the reason for doing so. So, maybe to the technicians that also our online audience is aware of the full dimensions of this event, I would like to wave just from both locations. So we have a hybrid event, so maybe we can start waving from Henkel DX Berlin Hub. Where are all the female founders? Great, and then I'm looking on the screen. Unicorn Space, where are you? Great, perfect. So, before we are starting with the session, I would like to give you a little bit of context what Xathon is actually. So, Xathon is a business hackathon for female early-stage entrepreneurs, which we are running since 2019. Over the course of 3 days, we are providing 100 female entrepreneurs with knowledge, expertise, a network, a platform that they can accelerate and boost their business model. This year, we also have a special prize for the winner of this year's Xathon, which is 25,000 euros. And now, I don't want to steal more of your time. I'm handing over to no other than Tijen, CEO and founder of Global Digital Women, who will lead the session from the Unicorn Space. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Delia. Okay, that was long, actually. Thank you so much for the great introduction, and welcome to all of you here. I'm very excited to be here again, analog, not digitally, but this is definitely the best space, right? Here at Unicorn. Sorry to say, I know I have so much fans now out there. So I'm Tijen, I'm the founder and CEO of Global Digital Women and also ACI Consulting. ACI Consulting is my consultancy for diversity, equity, inclusion topics, and I'm so much looking forward for our great panelists here and to rock the stage with you, with all of you, and to drink with you and to have some food afterwards. So I just wanted to start with some words about our work. When I started with GDW, Global Digital Women, years ago, it was actually 5 or 6 years ago, I don't remember, but 5 or 6 years ago, everyone was like, okay, what is female empowerment and why female networking? And everyone was like, okay, you are so crazy to become an entrepreneur focusing on female empowerment topics. Today, everyone is talking about female empowerment. CEOs, founders, sometimes investors, venture capitalists. But I think sometimes it's a bit of, let's say, pinkwashing. Yeah, let's be honest. But not almost, but sometimes. And what we see when we consult companies, it starts really from the top. So you need the CEO and you need him or her to be committed to diversity, equity, inclusion topics because he or she is the best diversity ambassador for the company. Because I think it's really important that we have like democratic structures in companies like female networks and other communities, for example, for diverse backgrounds or LGBTQI+, yeah, that's really important to have this kind of democratic structures, but we also need the commitment from the CEO. When we don't have the commitment, it's really, really difficult when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion topics. And you will not find a CEO anymore who will say, okay, diversity is not important. But I think actions speak louder than words when it comes to diversity, but also sustainability. These kind of topics are almost similar, and it's really interesting to see that. But what we see when we actually are not in the theory, when we are in cases, for example, when we consult mid-size or bigger companies, it's again, it starts from the top, and you need the commitment from the CEO. And what we also see is that we have really a great bunch of female, let's say, ambassadors within the companies, but also diversity ambassadors. And that's really great to see. We see it on LinkedIn, we see it on Twitter, sometimes on TikTok or Snapchat, whatever. We see a lot of people who really put all the work into this kind of topics. And this is really important because you all are kind of ambassadors for this topic, and we need you all because the game starts now, and we are not have achieved the goal, and that's why we need all of you. We need your voices, and we need your commitment, we need your likes, your comments, your visibility on LinkedIn. So like, comment when you see someone is speaking up into diversity, equity, inclusion topics. We need your voice and we need the commitment, because actually we see that we have some discussions. For example, the discussion about Sana Marin. I was like, okay, really? So we are talking about a female politician who is dancing? That is fucking crazy, sorry to say, but this is really crazy, because why we are discussing about a female politician having fun with her friends, and that shows up that the perception for female politicians are so much different to male politicians, right? And we need these discussions, and we need the commitment from all of you to be engaged when it comes to these topics. What we also see is, we had the headline of this panel talk, like diversity is not only a business case, but it is also a business case. But what I also see is, and always reflect on, is when I talk to CEOs and members of the boards, they are not feeling it. So you are showing the studies, you are showing, okay, there is a combination of like the performance of the team and the diversity and variety of the team, but they don't feel it. They don't feel it in the heart, and they don't feel it in the mind. So you're showing the studies, and they are like, yeah, okay, Tijen, I read the studies, but you know, when the studies were right, why do we have this kind of gaps in the companies? And I'm asking the CEOs, and they are always like, yeah, but we cannot find diverse talents, we cannot find female talents, and I just want to promote female talents, but they don't want to get promoted. And I'm like, yeah, that's not true. So we need to change the discussion about diversity, equity, inclusion. We all know that we, as women and as diverse talents, we have to move, right? Yeah, so we have to show up when we want to make career, but it is also true that we have to change the structures. So we need to change the discussion about diversity, equity, inclusion. Don't fix the women, fix the system. It's not about fixing the women, it's not about fixing the diverse talents, like for example, BPOC people with diverse backgrounds, people from the LGBTQI+ community, women, etc. It's not about fixing them, it's about fixing the structures. And this is really, really important, because I can be really loud within a company, I can be becoming very visible, and I see a lot of people here that are really visible on LinkedIn, but I need to have the backup in the companies, and I need to have the commitment and also the possibility to follow my career and to have some mentors and to step up into the next career positions. And that's why we need to change the discussions when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm so over it when people ask me, especially journalists, okay, Tijen, what can women do to become more visible, or what can women do to achieve more career goals? And I'm like, yes, we have to do something, but maybe we can ask, for example, male leaders in male-dominated positions, in male-dominated companies, what they can do when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion. And that was really interesting. We had a case, so we consulted a big bank here in Germany, and I was sitting there with the CEO and the whole board, and only men, and then they said, okay, we have a huge gap when it comes to women into leadership positions. We have 60% in the one under the highest leadership position. We have so much women, but they don't want to step up. And then I asked the CEO, okay, is it really that case that they don't want to step up? Or is it like you have a non-inclusive environment within your management board circle? And he was like, yes, I never asked them. And then I was like, okay, then maybe ask them, ask the women. And then we asked the women, and they said, it's not about balancing work and life and family and business. It's more about like a non-inclusive environment, and we don't want to step up because of the non-inclusive environment. Again, it's not about the women. It's not about fixing the women. It's about fixing the system and the structures, and it's also about inclusive leadership. And last but not least, again, I want to empower you, because it's not the end when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion. We need to step up. We need to be loud and present when it comes to these topics. We see it in the US. We see it when it comes to crazy dancing female politicians. We see it when it comes to the ecosystem in the startup scene, in the investment game. I invested in the last 2 years in 10 startups, only female founders. Actually, it's crazy. Some male investors said to me, oh, you are so discriminating because you only invest in female founders. I'm like, yes. And I'm so proud that I'm discriminating, because we need business angels like me who are really focusing on female founders. And that's what I can do. I have now the capital, I have the reach, I have the presence, I have the possibilities to really empower other female founders. And that's why we all need you. I read all of your startup companies and your stories. I'm really curious to hear more, to listen to you and share your thoughts, your challenges. I will be more than delighted to help you with my network and also with my reach on social media. Whatever I can do, I will do it for you, because I'm a huge female founder, but also diversity fan. So keep up the good work. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope that was the perfect start into our great evening. I'm so much looking forward to maybe dance with you, where it's crazy. I'm so much looking forward to drink with you. I think we will have some alcohol, right? Yeah, drinks? Maybe. Okay, we will see. Drinks, and also great panelists, great combination, drinks and panelists, yeah? And I prepared, or my team prepared, some interactive facts for you, and maybe you can hand over to your mobile phone and prepare it for these kind of questions. We prepared some questions for you. Through food for thought, we have the first question. I will show it here. And we have a question, and I think we have a lot of experts here. Yeah. And the first question for you is, since when has there been a mandatory quota for women on the management boards of listed companies and companies with equal co-determination? So since March 2020, since August 2022, or does not currently exist? What do you think? Do you have like the possibility to vote? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, yes, you have the QR code here. Okay. I think you are really smart and intelligent. let's see. Currently does not exist. Okay, I think you see the green one is the right one since August 2022. Yeah, this is true. Yeah, okay. No. Okay, as I mentioned, you are really smart and intelligent. I like it. Great. Okay. So, the next one. Yes. Okay, I love the crowd here. This is my sense of humor. So, what percentage of 500 surveyed companies in a digital economy do not have a single woman on staff? 5, 10, or 15? What do you think? Yeah. Five, 10, or 15? Ten. Yeah, almost right. So, and the next one, it's also interesting. So the next one is, how many of those employed in Germany feel that there's little or no diversity in their workplace? 28, 40, or 48? Yeah. 40. And we prepared another interesting question. I think you know that. In how many European countries do women earn exactly as much as men? A, B, C. Yes. That was easy, right? Everyone was like, yeah, that was easy. So I think we can stop it here, but it's really interesting to see. There are a lot of facts out there in the internet, but again, in the web, it has to click here in the heart and also in the mind. You have to understand and to feel it. Diversity is also about like feeling it, yeah? And again, actions speak louder than words. For me, this kind of studies, for my work, it helps, yeah? Sometimes for some arguing within companies, but sometimes it's also better about like telling some really practical stuff. For example, sharing some situations about unconscious bias, about like women in leadership positions, about some real cases. That also works when it comes to really convincing other people for becoming diversity ambassadors or diversity fans. But as I mentioned before, we prepared a really great panel, and I see the panelists here in the audience, and I will now introduce them with a big applause. So we have Kenza here. Kenza, can you join me? Yeah, big applause for Kenza. Kenza in the house. Hello. Everything good? Yeah, you can. I'm like, yeah. Everything good?
Yeah.
How does it feel?
Life?
Life?
Life. The question is too broad.
How does it feel?
Life is great. I'm exhausted, but that's normal.
Yeah, that's normal.
Yesterday I heard something very interesting. Joyfully exhausted.
Oh, that's nice.
Nice, oder?
Ja, ich muss übernehmen. That's nice. Okay, this is Kenza, the famous Kenza. I love her. She's actually an author. Yeah, she's really active on social media, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, also on Instagram, on Snapchat. Not really. but okay, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. She's Director Client Engineering at IBM DACH, and I'm really happy that she's here. She was also part of my documentary, Yes She Can, on Amazon Prime Doku, and it was really, really crazy, and I liked it so much. So big applause again for Kenza. I love the picture, by the way. This is great, isn't it? I love it. Yeah, our picture. Everyone is like, oh yes, that's great. So, the next one, she's also really into the LinkedIn game, and she was also part of my podcast, of my podcasts. So I'm great that she's here, and she has also, I would say, great sense of colorful clothes and style. Yeah. Lunia Hara, she is Director Project Manager at Diconium. Guten Tag, hello. Oh my God, guten Tag. Oh, so formal. Yeah. The other one, she's the Global Head of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at Henkel, Saskia Schmaus. A big applause for Saskia. Hello, Saskia. Hi, great to see you.
Yeah. Great to see you.
And then we have two great female founders. I love them so much. Olaolu Fajembola, cultural and media scientist, author and co-founder of Tebalou. Big applause. Hello. Hey, great to see you. And last but not least, she's also the co-founder of Tebalou, and she's a psychologist, author, and her name is Tebogo Niminde-Dundadengar. Hello, hi. Schön, dich zu sehen. Kenza, maybe we can start with you. So when you think about the diversity discussion here in Germany, what are your thoughts?
This is so
easy question.
Yesterday.
So yesterday. The discussion or my question? Oh my God.
Actually, both.
Oh, both. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the discussion, yeah, I'm really tired of this discussion. I would really love that we go beyond that discussion and just do
Move
what we
on.
have to do. Move on. Yeah. And also the question. The fact that we're still asking this in Germany is really, it shows that we're not there yet. We're talking and talking.
Yeah. Saskia, you are part of Henkel, as I mentioned before. What do you think about the discussion? Because I think when we see what you are doing here at Henkel, especially in the startup ecosystem, sometimes we think everything is okay, yeah? Mm-hmm. Both sides, corporate and startup, but I think that's not true. We have a lot to do, right?
So also I would say for Henkel as such, so we are a big company, so meaning actually we have 52,000 employees. We have 124 nationalities. We are operating worldwide. Nevertheless, there's still a lot to do because otherwise I wouldn't have the job and I wouldn't be more or less doing that. But I think when you think about Germany, I looked up this number and I found it really interesting because actually 95% of German companies are small or medium businesses. Yeah. So meaning they can't, or maybe they don't have the manpower to deal with the topic, but as you said before, they don't put it or they don't see it as really the topic which needs to be driven also from the top, because yes, you need the commitment and also you need to have the culture who's also, bringing it forward so that you have this culture of belonging that everybody feels belong to, and that everybody can more or less thrive and be his own best.
Lunia, when we see the discussion here in Germany, we see that we are always focusing almost on gender, right? And Saskia, you mentioned the term belonging, which I really like. When I see it in the international cultures and companies, we speak about belonging and also more like the equity and inclusion part. But what is it here in Germany? So are we like very traditional behind, as Kenza said, or what's the problem?
I would say provokingly we are behind. We are somehow traditionalists that like to keep and maintain don't change anything. I want it to be the way that it is, the way I know it from my childhood, which is, I think, long-term is dangerous, because what people don't realize that diversity is actually can enhance emotional intelligence, because our world is becoming more and more complex, and with or without diversity, the world is becoming more complex. So we can actually use diversity as a vehicle to teach people to be open-minded, to have flexibility, and to adapt to new situations, because we need this kind of thinking in the future. We need it anyways. With or without diversity, we need a different mindset. So therefore, we need to teach, we can use actually diversity as a natural way between humans to learn this new way of thinking and mindset.
I love that you combine the complexity of the world with the need of diversity. I think that's a great combination. But we are talking about like diversity in all kinds of fields, but we are especially here at Henkel and at the Xathon in the startup ecosystem, and you both are also founders. So what do you think, or what do you see in the startup ecosystem when it comes to diversity? Who wants to answer?
We focus mostly on early childhood, education and kids. So basically on the future of us and what we saw when we wanted to start. I mean, as in here, I was just saying before that I would love to enter a startup scene in the future, and to know that when it comes to people of color, it's not clear that they're going to be talking about diversity, first of all. It would be great to see that they are talking about all the topics that need to be talked about in the ecosystem of startups, but mostly what we experience is, that our expertise is acknowledged when it comes to diversity in the startup scene. So I would say we still have a long way to go when it comes to that. And coming to diversity in general, I would also say that in our case, the Winnetou debate was the debate that was, of course, brought us on the line again, and journalists are interested to see our perspectives on this. And for me, it's just like to react on this. Right now, it's just like, now it's all about emotions. So let's not talk about emotions, let's talk about, as you said, about businesses. Why is a publishing house still doing this? Why do we have to republish, bring out new editions on stories of 100 years ago, instead of, maybe investing into new voices, new perspectives, and so on, so that we can, broaden the access to, new stories, actually. So this is what I would wish for.
I think that's a great wish. And Tebogo, can you share more of your work, maybe? That would be also great.
So we're kids of the 80s. We grew up in the 80s in Germany, and we never saw ourselves in our children's books and the toys we had. 30 years later, we're mothers, and we found that the market hadn't changed a lot. We were still looking for these products, had to import them, and you couldn't go to Thalia or Karstadt to get these products. This is why we started Tebalou, as a place where parents like us, but also modern parents that want diverse toys for their children, can get these products. So Tebalou is basically an online shop for children's books and toys with a focus on diversity.
And what do you see? You mentioned before you are now really present and visible also in the media, which I like really, really. And I think you are also great role models for others. Does it help that you are now becoming more and more visible with your story of your background, but also of your startup, to empower other also female founders?
We hope so. I mean, we see that especially young black women get in contact with us and try to network with us, which is great. We love to network also to empower others. then on the other hand, we're still seeing that we're entering, especially when you asked about startup scene, that we enter a room where they're mostly, I would say, like the typical 25-year-old white male business graduates. And it still seems like it's easier for them to get funding. So when it comes to funding, I think being a black woman or woman of color is still very, very difficult.
That's why we need, on the other side, like on the investor side, more diversity. And that's why also I decided to become an investor, which is also sometimes very challenging, but I love it, by the way. Yeah.
I think I would like to make a remark to emphasize on something in business. It's like we have now business people from other backgrounds, and coming back to this Winnetou story, why are black people, as an example, are invited to come to discuss about diversity, but the same companies don't invite them saying, hey, we have this idea, this is the new book we want to bring out, what do you think about it? How can we change the story to avoid such situations like what happened?
Well, this also sometimes happens, but the point is you have an author writing about a theme that is not his or hers in the first place, maybe to write about, and then at the end of the process, they would invite a person of color to, okay, can you check it over and do it right? Then it's being published and everybody's like, oh my God, this person wrote so good about diversity. I'm so impressed. And the name of the sensitivity reader is never mentioned. So it's also, the best thing would be to just invite diverse people to write the books in the first place, as you said.
No? Yeah, and diverse, and invite diverse people when it comes to decision-making processes, right? For example, in companies. Kenza, does it help when we measure more when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, especially in corporates, and most of my professional career was in corporates. If you can't measure something, you can't manage it. This is like the mindset in corporates. And they have big structures, thousands and thousands of employees, so you can do it based on stories. And especially the top management, they need measurements and KPIs. And you definitely see when they track certain KPIs, so on gender representation or also other backgrounds, at least the numbers are transparent, right? So they can't pretend we don't have women. And I was really active earlier in the woman story, let's say. And it's funny because I've seen those numbers, like in the marketing department, for example, or finance department, or HR even, you usually have a representation of over 60% female in comparison to male, but then the bosses are male. And so the argument, we have a pipeline problem, doesn't work. So in an IT department, I could understand if you have 15% female, and then you say, okay, we are missing the female to be managers, but in the same company, within the same company, you have like 60% or over female representation in a finance department, but the CFO is a white guy. So it's, when you have these numbers, you can say, well, look at this. Your argument doesn't work here. Yeah.
Saskia, how does it work at Henkel? Do you have like quotas, as we mentioned before? Do you also measure your achievement when it comes to D&I topics?
So actually I'm really proud in that kind of sense, because as of February this year, we set ourselves an ambition to go for gender parity until 2025, which is, it's more or less around the corner. We are today at 38% on all management levels, so we still have a lot to go. Nevertheless, for me, I think first of all, we have seen progress over the last 10 years, but only 1% each year, so it's not enough. So that's why we said, okay, we have to set ourselves an ambition and we have to go bolder. So that's why I'm really proud that we go and will be take that step.
38% on all management levels? I can't really believe that.
we are in total, no, so in total 38, and on top MC we are 28%. At the moment, so no. In total,
30%,
no.
That's why.
And for sure, I look worldwide. Yeah, so we are talking as Henkel as a total. Yeah, so that's what we look. So we have in management around 13,000 employees. So in management positions. So really proud that we go that step. And I also think also what it does also with Henkel more or less, that due to the fact that we set this ambition and that we went outside communicating it, there's also an expectation from us that we do it. And I also have the feeling that now, something is happening, and now we are progressing faster than before. And this is at least the feeling I have.
If you wanted to be quicker, I don't think you have to. You'll be able to make it happen, but put it in the incentive plan.
Yes, it's also in the exactly. That's also anchored.
It helps.
That's
in
also anchored.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we know that from our work. It helps, and sometimes it's sad that we need this kind of incentives, because, as I mentioned in my speech, I think it has to be like click it here in the heart and also in the mind. But as you mentioned before, measurement helps. Also when it comes, by the way, to sustainability topics, because they are always almost similar. Lunia, as I mentioned before, we are really active on LinkedIn. We see a lot of stuff from you on LinkedIn, pictures, but also great thoughts when it comes to empathy and leadership. You are an expert when it comes to these kind of topics. So coming back to diversity, equity, and inclusion, does it help that we have more visible role models and also more visible discussions on LinkedIn?
Definitely, it does help. I mean, just from my personal experience, first of all, to start with, I get lots of messages on LinkedIn, but even internal, that people are actually happy to see someone black in such a management position because they feel like represented. I get a lot of messages, both men and females, saying, wow, this actually motivates me because now I have the feeling I can make it there too, that it's possible. And, but despite that of being a role model, it's also about having different views on certain discussions. And one thing is, you can, of course, diversity, the capability of diversity thinking is something very complex. Yeah, so you can try to develop diversity thinking. It is possible, but it's much easier to say, instead of, oh, let me try to think for a woman, how would a woman think, or what do the women need? It's much easier to bring that capacity, capability to the table. You invite the women, and then you have that thinking naturally and easier.
And how do you feel when you have like also let's say not so such nice messages on LinkedIn? Do you receive some, or is it like always fan post and?
No, it's honestly it's frustrating, and I'm someone who's open for dialogue because I believe we can only solve the issues if we talk and keep the dialogue. So I respect other people's views, but sometimes it's really frustrating and tiring because you repeat the same things over and over again. And when I see that actually a CEO from a big international company uses the N-word openly on LinkedIn, that's something where really draws me back motivational, because I believe, wow, we're actually very, very far away. And this is not just one person. Then I read all the comments, and then actually the majority is like clapping that it's being just saying his own opinion.
his own opinion and the variety of opinion, Meinungsvielfalt, which is a sometimes frustrating word here in Germany. And he was, I know who you mean, he was, or he is member of the board of a company. I was also discussing a lot on LinkedIn, and I received a lot of not so great fan posts on LinkedIn on my personal messages, and some people told me, okay, you are crazy, you are such a awkward feminist, and go back to your home country. And I was like, home country? Okay, Karlsruhe? Karlsruhe, no, thanks. Yeah. But it's really crazy, and it frustrated me also a lot. Kenza, you mentioned it before in the intro. You said it's frustrating because your question is really like, why do you ask this question? And also the discussion about diversity is frustrating. When you see these kind of LinkedIn comments, what do you think?
It is a challenge that we have in society, and we need to change our behaviors, and we need to change so many things. It's really deep in our values, and we all had the same or a similar education. I mean, I was raised in Morocco, but even in Africa we're racist, I say. So it's because we all have been taught this is good and this is bad, and then we all grew up in the same system. And this is what we need to change, and this has been done for the last 500, 600 years, so it's not going to change in 5 years. But you see the magnitude of the problem. And I have 2 children, right? So I try to teach them to be open and diverse, and I'm a feminist, and my son, he comes from Kita, and he's like, the boys are strong, and the girls are weak. I'm like, who told you this? And the boys are quick, and the girls are slow, and every time I go running, I come home, Mama was really quick today, and it's just so tiring. So, at home you try to your best, but the whole society is educating your child, and you won't manage by yourself. So this is why we need everybody to change their mindset, and this takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, so it won't happen by itself.
Yeah. Lunia.
May I add something as an advocate for empathy? I think it's not just about values. It's also lack of empathy, because when I'm discussing on LinkedIn in my comments, I try to understand the other person. But I can already see if you go through comments, most arguments, they always start with I, me, but I. Yeah. And at no point they're trying to understand the other position. And this is what I don't mind arguing, but please try to see it from the other perspective, or at least ask, allow me to understand, please explain it before you come to a conclusion. But mostly it's like, we're talking about, it's not about values, it's about I, me, and this is why I'm in the center.
I will shortly open up for the discussion here from the audience, from this great, amazing hub and the other hub, and sorry, discrimination. And the other hub, and also from LinkedIn. So we have an iPad here, and so we can receive some questions from the digital audience. Yes.
I would say in our case that's why we focus on the future and on the kids, because I have to acknowledge that there is a generation or generations of power holders who have the privilege to ignore common sense or to ignore, I would say, a common agreement that racism exists, sexism exists, and yes, and they can ignore it. So that's why I would say in my case, I feel like we as a community of people, when we see something like that, we need to support the person who speaks up, and we have to show them you are not alone, we are here to support you, let's focus on that. and to educate people who are willing to listen and to learn. And yes, and focus especially on the kids, because if you say your boy is saying things like this, then it's up to us mothers and fathers, of course, but also the education system to allow kids to, to start from an early point to work on the sexism, to detect it, to also get a feeling, empathy, it's also about that. Also the diversity of us, so yeah. I mean, we only have this much energy and time, so I feel like we need to also focus on what helps us, our communities, and our case.
Especially energy. Sometimes I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. But then it helps that there are a lot of people out there on social media, but also in person, and they say, okay, you are a role model, but you're also empowering others to becoming a part of these kind of discussions. And Tebogo, that's actually my question. I mentioned it before in my speech. So how can we all be part of this, let's say, also movement? What can we do?
So many things. First of all, I mean, we're in the early childhood, so look at the books. People are so, especially in Germany, like, oh my God, I love my Pippi Langstrumpf, and I love this and I love that. And you can love it, do it, but look at it. Like, really look at it, and look if a black child would read Pippi Langstrumpf. What does it tell this child? What does it tell a white child about black children? Do we really have to repeat these stories over again? There's so many new stories. So. Change the stories we're telling children, and then also we really love to change the discussion away from the others, like the people of color, the black people, the people with disabilities, and looking especially like in a white family, like let's talk about us, let's talk about whiteness. What does it mean to be white in this society? What does it mean to have money, to have access? How much power do we hold as a family, as family members, and how can we share this power before we look at others and like jump into this, oh, how can we help women of color with disabilities to get more access, and never look at the damage we're doing every day, and all of us, and including myself as well, like, when I organize a space, do I check for people for the accessibility for people with disabilities? Can they enter? Things like that. So what can we do every day?
Yeah, sometimes my perspective is this discussion about diversity. It sounds like a discussion about a charity project. Yeah, you mentioned it. So how can we help this kind of minorities? But that's not the point. And Saskia, talking about and speaking of that. When we look at the inside of corporations, of big companies, so what do you think about the dialogue in this kind of companies? So, because we talked about LinkedIn, and for me, LinkedIn is like the place where everyone can be part of the discussions, but I see it when we work together with companies, that we also have these kind of discussions within the companies, in the intranet, but also in meetings. So what helps to have the empathy and to see the other perspective?
I think so, to always stay in the dialogue, because so I think it's normal also in corporates. You have the ones which are more or less grown up, and maybe go now for the mates who are grown up with a company, who are used to certain standards and who always do the way like always. And you have then for sure the others who really want to push and drive diversity, and also, as you said before, Tijen, show the numbers, show that more or less diverse teams are much more successful. And we also see it in our own internal data, so we don't even need to look at external data. We actually have the proof already internally. But to keep the discussion going, I think what also helped is that from the management board, that we also put it as a really strategic factor into our whole, we call it purposeful growth agenda. And I think this also helped because now it is really on everybody's mind. So it's cultural transformation and it is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we really talk about it. And there is no one at the moment who can't or neglect this topic anymore.
What is the most challenging part on your job? You can share it here.
No.
We have 1 million participants in the digital live stream.
Yeah, so most challenging, so it really belongs to where I go to, but for sure when you think about especially our ambition we communicated, for sure it is always like when you talk to men, it's like, well, you know, you now have this ambition and now I don't get a job anymore. So to really explain in detail why this is not the case, that we actually look for qualification, and yes, I mean, and gender is also a further part of it. Nevertheless, these kind of discussions you have, and also, you know, you also raised it before, for me it's also, we want to have women especially more in the top executives, but we actually need to give them more space. It's not one chair at the table, we actually need more, because only then they can say, oh yeah, I want to go there because I also see it works. And this is also, you know, the discussion we really want to drive.
Yeah, and that's really important that you highlighted the topic of quota. Quota does not mean no qualification. I hate this when we discuss like, okay, it's not like asking women on the street, do you want to have a management board position? Yeah, it's like building up a strong community and a strong, as Kenza mentioned, and a strong pipeline and empower them to become strong female leaders. Do we have some questions here? Yeah, here, but also, okay, maybe we can start first here, sorry, and then in the other half, and then digitally, right? Yes. Do we have a microphone? Yes, we do.
Thank you. Hi, thank you so much for this super interesting panel. I have a question regarding the implementation of the targets. So I'm more into the sustainability topic, which Tijen, you said is very related. I think it's very true. In sustainability, you always have those big targets, and then the question is, how do you actually turn this into actual action? The target of Henkel seems clear. Now, how do you plan to turn it into concrete action? And by that I mean, I was talking about it with my grandpa, and he was like, so what does it mean? Does it mean that they will fire some white old men to make space for diversity? Or does it mean, like, because it's true that if you set a target that is that close, probably there will not be this space that will be created by itself, where all of a sudden there's 50% that is free for women to take, or for people of colors. So I was wondering a bit, how do you actually turn this into implementation measures?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. I could talk for hours for sure, but let me maybe focus on starting with the leadership. So first, what we really do is really upskilling also our leadership team, because they need to be aware about the so-called unconscious bias, so that they don't oversee maybe unconsciously women, because you are, and this is natural, you prefer people which are more like you. This is normal, that's human. Nevertheless, you need to be aware of that, and this is actually one of the really big trainings we are doing, and we are actually now taking it a step forward. Also have a dedicated really workshops only for top executives to really drive that topic. There's so much to do, because you have to look into the complete we call it employee life cycle, more or less, which is starting actually from recruiting, that you use kind of gender neutral, Stellenbeschreibung, gender neutral
job description.
Yeah, exactly. That, you know, that also females feel that this is a culture where I want to belong and where, you know, like females are more attached to like team play and all that. When you think about a man who's like about, like, you know, performance, you know, this is about, you know, hitting the target. So you need to really look into that. Also parental leave, parental reintegration, also development of people. What we see is that we also lose a lot from middle management to top executives. So why are these women not going up?
The leaky pipeline.
Yeah, so exactly. So this is, you know, and this is where we try to, you know, also offer support and especially also have our top executive, because also here I think it's really important that we have males as allies, because we can't do it without them, the men, in that kind of sense. We need to do it all together.
From my perspective, when I can also answer the question, the truth is also what we see when we consult companies. You have to tell the truth, and the reality is that you will focus a kind of time into promoting women, and it means that you will not promote men. That's the truth. Everyone is like, yeah, we can in storytelling. No, the truth is you will focus on promoting mostly women. Does not mean that you promote unqualified women, but it does mean that you have to really work on the pipeline and focus on promoting women. And there are some incentives, as Kenza said, and when you have the incentives, it's so surprising to see that it's working.
Suddenly they find the qualified.
Yeah, they find the women.
Yeah, suddenly.
And suddenly, wow, there are some women. Okay, surprise. So, and that's crazy. And that's also the truth. And we see that we need to tell the truth to the management board, because otherwise it's like creating a dream and discussing some dream stuff, and that's not helping.
I just wanted to add that what you've said is so true, that the structure is, it promotes someone all the time. It's been promoting someone, and it's
great.
Men. So there was already an advantage for men in the system, and therefore to withdraw this advantage away, you know, it's not taking, it's just a natural advantage or an unjust advantage that they got, and to take it away. That's why we have this, how do you call it, this applications where you don't put gender, pictures and so on.
Anonymous.
To equalize also the applications system. So all of these methods already try to erase basically the unfair advantage men got. So it's just to withdraw this kind of unjust advantage to promote women.
And that's the truth, and we have to tell the truth, and we have really to be really realistic. Yeah. So do we have other questions from the other hub?
I have maybe one question that just came in from LinkedIn. I think that's quite fitting into the discussion. Don asked, how would you answer the question from white heterosexual cis men? I feel discriminated at work now because companies want diversity. What do you say regarding that?
Streng dich an. Really, this is what I said. Such discussions I have with my husband at home, and he's a feminist. And he also said, well, I have the feeling I don't have opportunities anymore, because right now all the positions, they only take women. And I say, well, you have to be better than now. Because even in a, let's say you promote every year, usually there are openings coming up in management, right? So it's not that 100% of those openings you will cover with women. The difference is earlier it was 99% men, 1% women, and we are fighting to have like an 80% men, 20% women. But now the competition on those 80% positions are much higher. So the men need to be even better, and they're not used to it. They're just used to be friends with the boss, and they got promoted. And sorry to say that, strengt euch an. It's competition. It's just competition, nothing else.
And I would say the feeling he has is an echo of what a lot of marginalized people have been feeling for generations. I mean, they have to be, I mean, the pressure was put onto kids. You have to be better than anyone to reach a, middle position, management position. From the early age, you know, entering school, the pressure was on the kids. And yes, a lot of marginalized people have been normalizing this kind of pressure. They live with it every day. Pity for those who crash under this kind of pressure. Some make it, and then they stand as the role models. No, they've been surviving this, or whatever resources they had to be in those positions. But this is like a small echo of what really marginalized people have been feeling for a long time. So this person could be actually the ally you've been talking about. We need power holders, people who get a sense of how it must be if you're disadvantaged, kind of. So I would say, like, hold on to this feeling.
Put it into empathy.
Yes, change it to empathy. Draw wisdom out of it, and become an ally. Definitely.
Put it into empathy. That's
see it in a positive way. We are doing something for a better tomorrow.
Yes, exactly.
For your kids.
Yeah.
Here's the empathy expert, right? Yeah.
No, but it's also like taking away privilege feels unjust for the one who's losing his or her privilege.
Yeah. And there's always place for everyone, yeah? It's not like the room is so small, no, the room is big, but we need to have the measurements, and again, focusing now on these kind of communities, really to have equal opportunities for everyone, right?
There's a question there.
Yeah.
One of the few guys in the room.
And then...
So I like what you said when you said that when a woman of color is invited into a room, it's because to talk about diversity. And I don't know how the situation is in the other venue, but having a look in this room firmly reaffirms that.
We all had this feeling.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, why is it the case? Do you think is it because of not having access to information, or is it because of not supportive ecosystem? So what was your personal experience as well?
Well, I think, not to get us wrong, I think it's very important that we are sitting here and it's not a panel of white men discussing diversity. But we also know other shit. Like, we've got expertise in different fields. We don't only need to talk about diversity. There's a lot of things we know. All of us are experts in different fields. So we can also be invited to talk about other things. Yeah. I think that was the thing. So it's not, we don't feel wrong sitting here, but it's not the only topic we want to talk about.
I would also add that, as we said, diversity is also not just a charity case. It's also, it's untapped market. So a lot of people who are marginalized develop business ideas because they detect gaps in the market. You know, they develop business cases into these gaps. So I would say, yes, there is a lack of knowledge to certain topics in this ecosystem, I would say in the startup ecosystem as well in general. And they detect basically, okay, there is a topic, or there is a system. We know, yes, when we look around, we actually acknowledge that, yes, it's a very wide space, and therefore we need to change it. But how? Therefore, we develop this kind of panels and these talks. But it's the beginning, right?
And you highlighted this a few times, and it's really, really important. Diversity is a business case, and what I see is you can combine both. So you can combine being here as part of this great panel, but you can also be a businesswoman in a professional context and also bring your diverse perspective. Lunia, you mentioned it on LinkedIn, but also into this kind of discussions. That's why I decided to become a business angel, because I'm not investing in female founders because of like charity, yeah? I have a huge heart for female founders, but I'm also a businesswoman. So when I see a great business case, and I truly believe that female founders are true, really strong role models when it comes to building up great business cases, then I will invest, because there are female founders out there, there are women, but also there are also a great businesswoman, and you can combine both. And one addition, years ago when I decided to jump into these topics, people asked me when I was in politics, Tijen, can you join panels on diversity because of my migration background? I was always saying no, because I doesn't want to put into like this kind of field. And then I realized I am a role model. Whether I want it or not, I am connected with diversity because of my background, and I decided to become a role model for these kind of topics, because I know when I am visible, I can attract more female role models out there, because if you can see it, you can be it, and that's really important for us, but also for men. Coming to you. What a great Überleitung from myself here. Yes.
Am I allowed to ask a question? Yeah. First things first, she's my boss, so I'm supporting the cause. Yeah? I can resonate with what you're doing. Like, I had to listen to Pumuckl lately in the car. Okay. Jesus, that CD had to go like halfway through. Like, we need to swap it. Amazing. I have the feeling like last 6, 7, 8 years, things are moving, shifting in our society to a situation which feels more like the States. It feels the gap is opening, Pegida now with the Corona thing, and now the cancel culture. Really, some people don't get it anymore. You really have the feeling, and I can resonate with Lunia's stories about having to interact with people who kind of really behind the curtain when it comes to arguments, but leaving them behind is not the solution to the issue. So what do you think can really move the needle on a meta level, politically, CEO, wherever, to kind of mitigate that misunderstanding which is happening when you talk about maybe old white men or whoever is left behind? There's a lot of people who are currently left behind emotionally. So what do you think? Like, what's really moving the needle in 10 years' time?
That's a great question.
I think it's very different for different people. Like we see, for example, a lot of parents, white parents that have a black child, suddenly racism is important for them because they have a personal connection. For other people, it might be data to see, okay, I can make more money when I have diverse teams. So I think there's not like this one solution to tackling the problem. I think there are different people, different situations. Unfortunately. Yeah. If it was easy, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. But I think it's very complex, very difficult, and we always have to look into the situation.
Yeah, and I think we need to keep up the discussions, right? So especially also on CEO level, because as Tijen also mentioned before, and I can only sign, if we don't have the commitment from the top, and now talking from corporate side, nothing will move. So I think you need to have this constant talking about it. So sustainability was before mentioned. So actually the social is one of the aspects in ESG. So we have it already in, but we need to address it even more and bring it out even more.
Well, one comment from my side, thank you, just to add. In the narrative, we also, so the feminists, let's say, should be careful not to point out to the man with guilt, because they're not guilty. The system is guilty. So this is what I try to incorporate in my narrative, at least. We have all been raised in the same system. So it is not our fault that the system is the way it is, but it is our responsibility to change it. So we can't say, well, it's not my fault, I was raised like this, and that's it, and perpetuate the problem, but it is your responsibility to make it better for your children, for the future. It's responsibility to change it. It's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. It's our parents' fault, maybe, but not ours. But it is, we are accountable for not changing it. And I'm sure our children will look at us and say, why didn't you do? You could have, you didn't. So that's also a shift in perspective, I think.
Great, thanks. Yes.
I just received a message that there are a couple of questions in the hub, so maybe we can
finally
go over to the hub.
From New York.
Oh, they're frozen now.
So I'm looking to the audience, a question.
Yay.
My colleague will join you.
Hi, I'm Marta. Very nice hearing all the conversation. So I have the question regarding diversity within the venture capitalist world and the fundraising. We've actually officially there are no signs that there is any well there is we saw that the 2% invested in the female by VCs, and we know from the experience that actually when looking for the finding, nobody will tell you this officially, but if there is a female founder not backed up by the male founder in the team, it is a red flag for a lot of venture capitalists. So the question is, there are actually two. One is do you have any experience with educating this fundraising environment, which is mostly men? And the second is, what can we as female founders do to change that, different than just proving them wrong? So that's the two questions on my side when it comes to the fundraising environment and diversity.
Who wants to answer?
Well, maybe for the second question, what you are doing. So the thing is, we have to move up, get all rich, and become investors.
I'm not rich, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, but having the means to invest in people that look like us, or in marginalized people. And then, I mean, proving wrong or changing people's minds, I think it's difficult. I think for capital venturists, it's the numbers, right? Selling the dream, presenting the numbers, and making them believe that you're going to make them billions. This is.
But what I see, it's kind of a freaking circle, because men invest in men. So and they get to know each other at let's say the great universities like WHU or St. Gallen, and then investing is also a trust process. Yeah. Yes? So I always invest in the people, not only the business ideas. And then they get to know each other from universities, and men invest in men. Men build up unicorns, they become investors and business angels, and they invest again in men. So that's why I decided to change the perspective and to be part of the other side of the table. And now I invested in 10 startups in 2 years, and I'm really proud of that. I'm not rich, but I have a little bit of money, and I will invest it into a great circle again. And that's also my responsibility as a female founder, to not only to give something back, but also to change, as Kenza said, the structures in the system. I have to be part of the other side, not only like promoting female founders on social media. That's really, really important, and to have such great hackathons like here, but we need to have the capital side full of diversity. And when I started 2 years ago with the investment game, it was really, really tough. And a lot of male investors, they said to me, okay, investing in female founders is not a business case. And I was like, it is a business case. And now, today, I receive a lot of pitch decks from also male founders, and they say, hey, Tijen, you are building up a great ecosystem. I want to be part of your 10 portfolio startup game, because I want to also be part of your diverse portfolio. So this is really nice to see, and my dream is building up a VC for female funds. I'm working on it. I made a lot of huge steps in the last two years, and it's really hard. Everyone is like, yeah, when are you starting? It's really hard, but I'm in the fundraising game now, and I received a lot of great messages in the last 2 weeks, and so fingers crossed, but it's a lot to do. But one thing to add, maybe on the political system, because you asked the political system, there we can change, we can measure it, we can work with quotas from the CAFI Capital, but also the European Investment Fund, who's really interested into a diverse ecosystem. So change happens also on the political side, but we need to keep the topics loud and also be proud about the topics, and we need to have VCs only focusing on, again, female founders and diversity and also sustainability. We have it all over the world, but in Germany we are like, investing in female founders is not a business case. It is. It fucking is. So yes, but I think we have another question from the other hub, right? So maybe we can start there in New York, and then, yeah.
So back in New York City, You already have a mic, that's perfect.
Hi, thank you so much for all the amazing insights and having so many role models out there. Makes me want to ask you one personal question, which is really on all these journeys you've had, and you've had such an impact already. What are one of those very important personal learnings you've had on the way that get you or that gave you this place to be where you're now?
Oh, that's a great question,
personal
Kenza.
Oh, I think the question goes to you.
No, to all of us.
Oh yeah, to everyone.
Yeah, Kenza. Nice try. Nice try. Yeah. Who wants to start? Or Lunia, do you want to start?
Well, I could probably start. I think it was similar to what you said, Tijen. It's about changing things, seeing misshifts in society, and you can either sit there and watch and wish, or you can join the game and say, okay, let me stand up and what can I do? So for me, the easiest was talking about my work, leadership. And of course, in that sense, about leadership, how I would like it to be. Something that I was promoting maybe just to friends and to a few colleagues, and to move it on a higher level, and that's being, yes, of course, visible. It is a challenge. It was a challenge for me. Before I started, I was someone who was not even commenting anything on LinkedIn, just to be honest. That was already my personal comfort zone. So it's all about living your comfort zone. And saying, okay, my first step was one comment per week, for example. So whatever you want to do, it's okay to have fear. It's normal to have fear, but the first step is jump and do it with fear, and then you'll see actually, oh, it's actually not as hard as I thought.
Yeah. I would say I would really highlight the importance of networks. So especially when you get into this crazy idea, you want to start a company, and you don't know, you are not in the networks, you didn't attend these universities, you don't come from this bubble, and then you start doing these things. And again, when we started to work on diversity in the early childhood education, we actually got this class of Facebook, informational thing, to see if marginalized voices, people, speak out in public. It is, the shitstorm is about to happen at some point. They're going to be targeted, they're going to be attacked, and therefore they need to react on this. This is, for me, it was just crazy to have the audacity to be a woman, the audacity to be activists or talk on diversity, basically to voice the mostly unseen, untouched problems of the society, and that this can, cause this kind of outcry. And because you've been asking that a lot of voices are not heard or are left behind, and the upcoming of the right-winged or extremists, yes, it's true. I still believe that people who are anyway challenged or disprivileged in this society, why should they be the one to speak out about the problems of the society? Also, comfort the ones who are now feeling, oh my gosh, this society is changing. People who've never been talking suddenly start up talking. I think there is a lot of people, whose interests are represented, whose voices are represented, and so on. They need to also step up and take over responsibility. If people are attacking, marginalized people, they need to step up, I believe. Yeah. And to support and to talk against. They will never be attacked as much as us, women of color, disabled people, LGBTQI plus people are going to be attacked. Never. So, yeah, I feel like networks and, stepping up of the silent masses, basically.
Kenza, do you want to add something? You were like moving.
Yes, because there was a part in the question, where do you get the motivation from, right? Or the energy. And I would like to reflect on that quickly. I mean, since I was born, I had a strong feeling of equity somehow, so I was always getting in fights because I wanted everybody to be equal. Sometimes I say when I'm done working, I'm going to start studies in law. Anyway, so, but at the beginning of my career, I was not that engaged in this discussion because as everybody at the beginning of your career, you come out of university, you have the best results, and you say, yeah, I'm smart, and I'm an engineer, by the way. Tijen said, introduce me as an author, but this is only a side effect.
That's true. I realized it.
It's just a hobby. But I'm an electrical engineer, and I work in the AI field, in deep tech.
But I'm
a smart ass.
I mentioned it.
And then you go step by steps in your career and you start realizing, oh, I'm smart and I'm a hard worker, but still I don't get the same opportunities. And this is where you start getting active. And that even multiplied after my daughter was born. I have a son and a daughter. And after she was born, I was like, okay, I'm really tired of this discussion, but I can't stop. I need to change the world for my daughter because this gave me, it's just huge energy. And really, I'm really tired of those discussions. And I'm so happy I work for an American company now because there is no such discussion. We're talking about bring your whole self to work. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about gender or race or skin color. Your whole self to work. It doesn't matter how you look like. So it's a complete other level. But still, I'm here today because I want to change the world for my daughter. So,
So do we have time for one question, or is it like,
I think we have a question in the hub, and we also have online questions. I don't know.
Okay, then one question from the hub.
Sure.
Okay. I saw there was another question later. Answered already?
If not, we have one at the back here.
No?
Can we do one here?
In the unicorn space then?
Here?
Yeah, here.
Last chance.
Here.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you so much for all of the work you're doing to disrupt the status quo. And bouncing off the initiatives that are being put in place to put women forward, there's a study that came out in June showing that female entrepreneurs backed by female funds will have a harder time raising future funds later. So how do we create a world where it feels like we can't get out of it? Either we do nothing and we're in the losing end, or we do something and we breed resentment or humiliation on the part of men and some women. So how do we get out of it?
Wow. This is really frustrating.
So maybe I can add something from my perspective because I'm building up such a fund. I think we need this kind of funds actually now, and I read the study also, and I was like, okay, this is kind of frustrating, but it's one part of and one piece of the cake, right? So, and I believe there are also other male allies out there, also in the venture capitalist scene, even though we were like saying a lot of bad shit here about the male, about the men out there. But I think there are also a changing system when you look up the venture capital system. They are becoming more and more female partners out there. So we need to change both sides. We need to have this kind of specific funds, like sustainability, diversity, female funds. And we need to have also the diversity into the, let's say, other and basic and traditional funds. And so we will change the system. Otherwise, you will not have the change. But you need to have the specific funds.
And also, I think things are moving, right? I mean, all of us were our ancestors' wildest dreams, because they couldn't have been sitting on the stage.
Yeah.
So things are changing. Like, we can't lose hope, even after reading studies like that. Like, we have to keep pushing.
And it's also interesting to see there were also a lot of studies they shown that female networks is the opposite like male networks. And let's see where we are here now. We have also some male participants here in the hackathon, not so many, but some of them. And it's especially my vision and my dream is to mix up the kind of venture capitalists, but also the startup ecosystem and also the networks. But for now, we need to have these kind of different movements, yeah? Communities focusing on different kind of dimensions of diversity in the startup ecosystem, but also in the corporate world, in the communities, on social media, but because there, we can make the change happen. Noch eine?
Yeah.
Thank you. You can, ruhig applaudieren. Danke. One question from the digital audience.
Exactly. Maybe one last question, and then we can maybe wrap up. Chiara asked via LinkedIn, what is the panel's opinion on gender quotas? How do we prevent the mindset that women only get the promotion due to the quotas?
My favorite topic.
I can prevent it. Maybe I can start.
Yeah.
So this is why we phrase it as an ambition. We don't say it's a quota in that kind of sense. I think this is important. And we were always against having a quota in that kind of sense. So it's an ambition from us, sitting from us within. But I would say we need it, because otherwise we see the needle, it is moved, but too slow.
But one addition from my side, you can't prevent what people think.
Yeah.
So you can do what you think is right, and different people will have different thoughts. So you can't prevent them thinking, I'm here because I'm a woman. It's okay, they can think it if they like. I have a different thinking. Maybe I even have the same thinking, but who cares? I'm still good. So this is just a transition phase, and after we have transitioned, nobody will think about it anymore.
And change is happening, whether you want it or not, so be part of the change, as Lunia said before. So, last round, what is your word of the evening today? What would you say?
The word.
Yeah, one word. Who wants to start? Okay.
Energizing.
Energizing?
Sure.
Yay.
Fully energized.
Lunia. My word is movement.
I can't think of the English translation. Mood.
Courage.
Yeah.
Courage.
Mine is responsibility.
Responsibility?
Am I the last?
Yeah. No, not you are not the last.
Community.
Community. And Lunia, you are the last.
Oh, I just wanted to say network.
Network, courage, movement, responsibility, and what did you? Network. Network, yeah. So, all the words together. It was a great panel, actually, panel talk, and great energizing. It was energizing. And maybe I can head up to Delia for the last words. So, for myself, thank you so much, and later on, cheers. Thank you.